Hello guys, welcome back to TFD. Let's get straight into it because today's topic isn't comfortable, but it's real. The Indiana Fever are standing at a crossroads, and tough decisions are coming whether fans like it or not. And I'm just going to say it plainly. No sugarcoating, the Indiana Fever may have to move on from Kelsey Mitchell. I know some of you just flinched when you heard that. I get it. This isn't about disrespect. This isn't about saying she isn't elite. This isn't about knocking her game. This is about business, timelines, and the reality of the new WNBA CBA. If you truly want to build something long-term around Caitlin Clark, then you have to be honest about what sacrifices are possible and which ones aren't. Here's the reality. The Fever want to grow this thing into a serious basketball business. Not just highlights, not just ticket sales, not just vibes. Real, sustainable success. And when you chase that, tough decisions come with it. Hard conversations come with it. And yes, sometimes popular players end up on the wrong side of the math. Now, let's talk about what's been said publicly. Head coach Stephanie White has been very clear. She said Kelsey Mitchell was their #1 priority last year. She said she's their #1 priority again this year. And that sounds great on the surface, but now the question becomes, what does priority actually mean when the numbers hit the paper? Because with this upcoming CBA, you cannot run 3 max contracts and still build a quality roster. You just can't. It doesn't work. The math doesn't math. Pay cuts have to happen somewhere. And this is where reality starts creeping in. Is Kelsey Mitchell willing to take less than a max contract to stay in Indiana? That's the entire debate, because if she's not, then the Fever have a serious problem on their hands. Let me ask you something honestly. Would your job convince you to keep showing up every day for less money than you're worth? Most people wouldn't, and I don't blame them. So I'm not blaming Kelsey Mitchell if she says, no, I want my max. That's her right. Now, shout out to Annie Constable over at Front Office Sports for laying out the financial realities of the situation. When you look at the big picture, the Fever cannot keep this entire core together and still surround them with quality players. Something has to give. And if you need proof, look at how the Las Vegas Aces built their dynasty. People love to point at that roster like it magically happened. It didn't. It took sacrifice. A'ja Wilson took less money than she could have earned. She wasn't even the highest paid player on her own team. That honor went to Jewel Lloyd, who was on a max deal at the time. Wilson left around 20% on the table so the team could stay competitive. Chelsea Gray wasn't on a max. Jackie Young wasn't on a max either. That's how championship rosters are built. Not with ego, with sacrifice. So again, the key question, do you believe Kelsey Mitchell will take less than a max? If the answer is yes, then fine. You sit down, you negotiate, and you figure it out. But if the answer is no, then the Indiana Fever have to be disciplined enough to walk away. Because here's what nobody wants to say out loud. The real priorities are coming up fast. In 1 year, Aaliyah Boston is due for her max contract, and a year after that, Caitlin Clark, who is already the face of the league, is due for hers. Those two have to be the foundation, especially Clark. Boston is essential to Caitlin's game. That pick and roll, that chemistry, that's not optional. That's the backbone of the offense. You don't sacrifice that future for short-term comfort. Here's what happens next. If the Indiana Fever give Kelsey Mitchell a full max contract right now, here's what happens next. You lose depth. You don't keep Lexi Hull, you don't keep Sophie Cunningham, and let's be clear, those players are not playing for minimum contracts, nor should they. Cunningham is due for a raise. Hull is due for a raise. Not max money, but real money. This is why roster balance matters. I truly believe the Indiana Fever are better off building around Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston with strong, well-paid role players than locking all their money into one third star and leaving the bench empty. That's how teams collapse. And again, let me be crystal clear. This is not an indictment of Kelsey Mitchell's talent. She is absolutely a max player in this league, 100%. If she wants to chase a max deal, she should. Go to the Chicago Sky. Go to Portland Fire. Go to Toronto Tempo. Wherever the money is, go get it. But if she wants to stay in Indiana with Clark and Boston, that max contract cannot happen. And if the front office does it anyway, it's bad business. Flat out. It's short-sighted, emotional, and irresponsible roster management. I'd love to see a big 3 work, I really would, but the way this new CBA is shaping up, 3 max contracts on one team isn't realistic anymore. Somebody has to sacrifice. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Kelsey Mitchell is older than Clark and Boston. She's not on the same timeline. Clark and Boston are going to be in this league for a long time, making a lot of money over many years. Mitchell is in her prime right now. If she's thinking, I need to collect everything I'm owed right now, I don't blame her. But if that's the case, the Indiana Fever need to move on.
Make no mistake about it. That's not hate. That's reality. Now, let's go over here real quick. Shout out to Robin Lundberg over at Sports Illustrated. He put out a video earlier, and there's also an article titled, "Why the Fever Will Face a Challenge Keeping the Core Around It." And honestly, none of this should surprise anyone. I've already said this before, but I'll say it again. You can't afford it. You can't afford to feed everybody. You can't afford to court a quality team if you're handing out max contracts left and right. That's just the reality of the new CBA. Let's make no mistake about it. Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston are the max players here, period. Everything else has to be built around them. That means you've got to hit on your draft picks. You've got to hit on veterans coming over from overseas. You don't have margin for error anymore. If the Indiana Fever want to stay competitive, every move has to matter. Okay, here said Annie Costable of Front Office Sports broke down the numbers in the league's existing proposal, citing the Fever as an example, given Kelsey Mitchell's free agency and likely supermax salary. As Costable noted, if Mitchell were to receive the new max, her contract combined with Clark's and Boston's would leave Indiana with well less than the new average player salary to spend to fill out the rest of the roster under the $5.65 million salary cap that is on the table. Of course, that cap number could still rise as negotiations continue, but with max salaries expected to exceed $1 million and the average salary approaching $500,000, maintaining multiple high-level players while preserving roster depth will require careful balancing. So you won't be able to keep all three. Now here said how this impacts Fever for 2026 free agency. Assuming Mitchell is re-signed, her salary will jump more than 4x in value from the base of about $250,000 in 2025, and would account for a higher percentage of the cap as well in the current construct. And she is just one of the team's free agents. It said only Clark, Boston, and last year's rookie Michaela Timpson are currently under contract, which means key contributors like Lexi Hull and Sophie Cunningham will also be on the market. Okay, now listen, I think it's mandatory you bring both of those back. No debate. I'd rather run it like this. Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and quality role players who actually fit and can be paid fairly. I'll take that every single time. Because what I don't want is a so-called big three with Kelsey Mitchell, Clark, and Boston, and then nothing around them. No depth, no bench, no flexibility. I'm good on that. Really good on that. Give me balance. Give me chemistry. Give me a roster that makes sense financially and on the court. That's how you build something real. Here said Hull is a restricted free agent, so Indiana can match any offer she receives, but her hustle and shooting has proven to be worth more than an average player. While Sophie Cunningham, who has made it clear she hopes to be back with the team, has also expressed the desire for a more secure contract. So perhaps running it back will not be as straightforward as it once seemed, as the front office will be tasked with attempting to work out deals that also allow room for depth. Fortunately, the Fever have the advantage of Clark and Boston still being under rookie-scale contracts, but when they're up for extensions, things could become much more difficult. All right, here said, can Fever keep core together? Says last year, Mitchell returned to the Fever under the core designation, meaning she received a max salary for a one-year deal. It remains to be seen how the core rule could be impacted by the CBA, but assuming it exists relative to its current form, Mitchell could be cored again to keep her with Clark and Boston short term. Okay, here's the deal. If you're going to bring Kelsey Mitchell back, it makes sense to do it on a one-year deal with the $1 million max or whatever it is. Fine. Keep her for one more season, but once Aaliyah Boston is up for her max, it's time to let Kelsey go. You can't lock her into a long-term deal, not when Caitlin Clark is up the following year for her max. There's just no way to keep everyone. So, mark my words, 2026 is Kelsey Mitchell's last season with the Indiana Fever. You can book it. There's no room for 3 max players in the system. Here said, however, Boston will be entering the final season of her rookie deal, with Clark's ending after 2027. Both players will surely command supermaxes and would seemingly be priorities for Indiana, which is the equivalent of 20% of the cap in the proposed deal. even if that percentage comes down, keeping 3 max players and still having room to field a representative roster appears unlikely given what we know about how the CBA could look. So, at this point, the Indiana Fever need to make a move. And that move is preparing to move off Kelsey Mitchell. If it doesn't happen this offseason, then the 2026 season is almost certainly her final year in Indiana, unless she's willing to start taking less money. That's just the reality of where this team is headed. With Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston being the future and the financial priorities, something has to give. You can't pay everyone max money forever. Now, get down in the comments and let me know what you think. Do you agree or disagree? Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share the channel.